So this is no joke. The system I've just discovered actually pulls carbon dioxide out of the air. It also generates electricity, hot water and central heating, while also making a fertilizer. It's also 100% recyclable. And I'm so excited about this because after several attempts, I've finally managed to get it working and hopefully have proven that this is a viable solution. And it's completely fueled with this. Coppiced wood. But do not be confused with Drax and the deforestation of ancient woodland in Canada. That is a stupid idea. No, coppicing is actually a form of ancient forestry management, which benefits the productivity of the trees and its biodiversity. Meaning if we actually manage our woodlands properly, they'll be more effective at pulling CO2 out of the air. The same actually also goes for our oceans, which absorb the most CO2 and converts it into oxygen. But just as a side note, try Googling what percentage of our atmosphere is actually CO2, and exactly what percentage of that is contributed by humanity. You'll get a very good understanding of my perspective if you do that. But more importantly for me, I want to be energy independent and not have to pay corrupt governments and corporations to have it. So I'm about to show you the journey I've been on to build this device. And what I really want to say is that you can build this yourself very cheaply. However, I must very strongly advise you not to. It's not a joke. I'm messing with gases that are highly explosive and highly toxic. There's also steam pressure, intense fire, and I might have just given myself cancer. There's even a chance of getting smoke in your eyes, which is the worst. So basically, unless you're a believer in natural selection, then you really should not copy what I just did. I had a lot of fun though. Let me show you. So then, here it is. This is a wood gasifier. Well, I know it's just a bucket at the moment, but I'm going to show you how easy and simple it is to turn this into a homemade power plant. Some of you might be familiar with Colin Furz's attempt. He used a gasifier to power his lawnmower and did an excellent job. However, it didn't work perfectly as it got caked up with creosote. But if you're fans of Colin, then try and get him to carry on with his developments instead of teaching Hamas how to build better tunnels. Nighthawk in Light, also an excellent YouTube channel. He did a whole series on gasification and did a fantastic set of videos. But anyway, the principle of this is I'm going to cook wood inside this steel bucket. The reaction that we'll achieve is called pyrolysis, which essentially means we're going to turn the wood material into gas, leaving beautiful charcoal behind. Yeah, here's some I made earlier. This incredible black gold is going to come in useful later on. So the gas we're creating is called syngas. It mainly comprises of carbon monoxide, methane and hydrogen, all of which are highly flammable. And what that means for us is we can use it in a standard petrol engine, just like this one. So this is 3,400 watts and I paid £380 on a special deal. So this is brand new, so it's squeaky clean inside, and to make sure we keep it that way, we're going to create a special filtration system. So we're going to make sure that no creosote or particulates are going to get inside that engine. After we've run this on wood gas, maybe we'll take this apart and have a look inside. So this generator should power all of my appliances directly, or I can use it to charge up a power bank. And for that, I managed to get hold of this. This is the Ecoflow Delta 2 Max, and I hand-picked this specifically for several reasons. This unit has the fastest charge capabilities of any other model that I've found. It's able to reach 80% capacity in just 43 minutes. And the idea here is to use the battery with the generator, so in the short amount of time that I'm running the system, I'm storing the most amount of energy possible. Not only that, but if I want to, I can plug 1,000 watts of solar panels straight into this. And I can also plug it into my truck and charge it via the alternator whilst I'm on the road. I've been testing Ecoflow's products for over a year now since I did my first video on the diesel heater. And apparently they're now guaranteeing that these new models will last 10 years or 3,000 charge cycles before you drop 20% of its original capacity. But what that essentially means, if this cost us 1,899 British pounds, that would mean that the depreciation value is about 12 pence per charge, or approximately 4 pence per kilowatt hour. So if we're going off grid using free energy capture such as solar power, then we're definitely cheaper than being on grid. And lastly, some key details that I like is the safety features. There are systems in place to stop it from overpowering, overcharging, it's got surge control and it's waterproof. And those are things that I haven't been able to trust in the cheaper brands. So then, as usual, let's look into the possible negatives of a battery like this. So then, do not be fooled, a battery like this is not environmentally friendly. Neither are the ones in your electric car or any other battery model in that case, because nothing that contains rare earth minerals, or potentially slave labour in some cases, can ever be classed as sustainable. Now, I have no idea of the ethical sourcing of the batteries within these units, but I can say that they actually upcycle these from used electric vehicles, and specifically from Tesla vehicles. So you'll have to talk to Elon Musk about the ethical sourcing of them. So the idea is that the vehicles will always have the highest capacity, and when they depreciate by a certain amount, they repurpose them to build these batteries. And these lithium batteries technically can be recycled at the end of their life, but it's not that simple. Now for me, this becomes an all-in-one off-grid system and gives me independence from crooks, not necessarily carbon. So essentially, instead of running the generator constantly whenever I need it, I can store the energy in this battery and use it whenever I want, completely noiseless. Now here's the thing, I'm straight up admitting I use my YouTube influencing powers to obtain this for myself for free. Because let's face it, £1,899 British pounds is a lot of money to spend on something which is experimental, as it would be for most people, I would assume. However, so that you guys feel that you're benefiting from this collaboration, I'm going to give you two things. Firstly, I've decided not to keep it and instead offer it to one of you guys for just £5. If you'd like a chance to win one of these and support this channel, then I'll put a link in the description and in the pinned comment. And lastly, I've made a deal so you get the best discount. So if you are interested, you'll be able to get the best deal going. But enough chit chat, let's burn stuff and make some angry pixies. So I've not just got one bucket, but I've got a second and a third one too. And these two are part of the filtration process. On both of the filtration buckets, I've marked up for an inlet and an outlet hole. So as you can see, both pipes virtually end at the same height. But on this side, as you can see, the pipe nearly reaches all the way down to the bottom. So these two buckets are going to be our first stage and second stage filter. For the first stage filter, we're going to add some stainless steel mesh. So what I'm going to do is wrap this mesh around the bottom of this pipe by simply folding it in half. Next, I'm going to take a pair of pliers and crimp over this edge. Not once, but twice. And now I'm going to shape the mesh to become more funnel shaped. So once you've shaped the mesh, you want to push it all the way down so the seam line just goes past the inlet of the tube. And then I've decided to use aluminium foil tape to secure it in place. And now that's the first stage filter complete. What we'll do next is we'll fill the bucket full of water. What will happen is as the syngases come through this pipe, it's going to condense any water vapour and creosote which will sink to the bottom. And then as the bubbles of gas pass through this sieve, it'll turn into smaller bubbles. And by doing so, you increase the surface area and improve its filtering capacity. So now that's done, we can move on to the second stage. So in this bucket, we're simply going to add crushed charcoal. I've tried to make it so the average size is roughly 10mm. And so charcoal, believe it or not, is an excellent filter, especially if it's activated charcoal, which we can produce by rapidly cooling it whilst we're making it. I do recommend wearing a mask whilst crushing charcoal, otherwise prepare for exceedingly black bogies. Before we add the charcoal, however, I want to make some baffles. This is just some cardboard made from old Amazon packaging. And now what I'm going to do is actually stack these onto the inlet pipe. So I'm going to go donut and then biscuit. Donut, biscuit. Donut, biscuit, donut. Like that. So how does this work, you may ask? If I draw the bucket, here's our lid, outlet pipe, and then we're going to pretend our inlet pipe is coming from the side here for now, just because it makes it easier to draw. Essentially, our baffles are going to be on the inside, like this. This whole void, apart from the very top, will be covered in charcoal. As the gases come in, they're only going to go around the baffles. By doing this, we're forcing the gases to move around a greater volume of charcoal, as opposed to letting the gas take the most direct route up and out, which would leave some of the charcoal without a job to do. So with the first layer being 50mm or 2 inches, we can now put the first baffle down. And I've tried to get it so the cardboard is pushed right up against the edge. So now I can drop a biscuit down. So as you can see, the gases are going to come through the sides, and hopefully the sides will cool it down a little bit more as well, meaning that any residual moisture will get condensed. So this is the last bit of charcoal for the last baffle. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of dust in this process, and we don't want any of that dust to go into our engine. So this last space that we have here, I'm simply going to pack it out with tissue paper. First by laying a piece over the donut hole, and then with more scrunched up ones, I'm just going to pack out the inside. So now the dust should remain, but allowing the gas to escape. So before we get started, I want to burn off all this paint and make this clean. So I'm going to show you a really effective stove we can build. Alright, so I've brought you outside to the wonderful British weather. And as you can see, it's wonderfully miserable. So next to my compost piles, my chickens have created this lovely scrub area we can use. And what I plan on doing is to dig out a rocket stove, otherwise known as a Dakota fire hole. About here will do. Right. So about a 3-inch gap, or 75mm, I've left here, and underneath there's probably about 300mm or a foot. What I'm also going to do is build up the edge around here to try and stop any more surface water from coming in. And then I want to build an inlet hole down there with a kind of ramping slope up that way. Right then, we're going to go all primitive technology now. And my soil is basically clay, which is perfect for this application. Hello, my dear. Wonder what my wife will think. Right, so over the fire hole, I've just put in this tripod. And on the bucket, I've added a chain simply by using some annealed wire. Right, so to start the fire, I'm going to begin by putting in some of these flat scrap pieces from laser cutting. That's kind of our base layer, if you like. Next, I'm going to add some larger pieces of wood. Because it's all coppice wood, it won't get any much bigger than those. Now I'm going to add another layer of wood. This stuff's slightly smaller, except I'm going to hash it like this. And I'm going to continue doing the same thing with every layer. And for the last layer, I've got a few bits of chopped up pallet wood. So that should be enough now. I'm now going to add my lighting nest. What I like to do is put one slightly thick piece of wood on top. That gives something for my kindling to rest against. So to help cheat with the fire lighting, I've got these cut up pieces of sisal. These are scrap pieces which I use to mop up linseed oil from other projects. I keep it in this jar and it makes excellent fire lighters. So I've frayed that up a bit and put it next to our kindling rest. For kindling, I've got more of this pallet wood that I've feathered up with a knife. And as you can see, I've left just a little gap under the kindling, so we've got place to light our fire. So I think I'll show off and show you my preferred lighting method, and that's flint and steel. This is simply some charred cloth, cotton. Take a piece of that. Got my piece of flint. And for my tinder bundle, I like to use a piece of cotton. So this is actually really simple to do. You just hold the cloth on the back of the flint like so. This is heat-treated high-carbon steel. You might be able to tell I've forged this from an old file. What we're going to do is hit the flint in a kind of sliding motion. Try and catch one of those sparks on that cloth. There. Just like that. We have our ember. Catch that in the cotton, and I'll take that down to the pile. Coax that in there a little bit. So look, now it's going, you can see it's producing hardly any smoke at all. Now what's happening is the embers and the heat above is heating up the wood below. And as we know from heating wood, it releases those syngases. Those syngases are then being reignited as they pass through the flames above. Syngas is basically smoke, and so having that smoke come from underneath makes it far more efficient. If we were to light the fire underneath this pile, we would create a huge amount of smoke, because all that syngas is basically being lost straight out of this chimney. A smoky fire is an inefficient fire. So I got a bit bored, decided to add a bit more laser cutting scrap. Well, it's certainly getting hot enough for pyrolysis, I'll tell you that. So while that's burning down, I thought it would be a good idea to remove the fuel tank from the generator. Now technically I don't need to do that because there is an on and off switch for the fuel, but really just to prove that this does run on wood gas, I'm going to remove the fuel tank. It's also not a good idea to have petrol so close to a fire. Fuel tank is off. Right, so to actually hook up the gasifier to the generator, we've obviously detached the fuel line, but we won't be needing this now. Instead, we're going to go through the air intake. So we take that off, that's the air filter. So here's a close-up of the carburetor. Here's the nozzle I made earlier. As you can see, I've made a Heath Robinson style bracket using a bit of annealed wire again. Annealed wire is becoming my most favourite thing at the moment. But those two bolts either side of the carburetor, we can just fit onto those. There we go, I've dropped a nut on one. And I'm really hoping that's going to work and it's that simple, because we haven't done any permanent modifications to the generator. Right, so this is it, the moment you've been waiting for. We've got our burn chamber nicely filled with wood. I've measured roughly an equal amount in wood for the fire, so hopefully we get like a 50% return on charcoal. So we've got our first stage filter primed with water. We've got the second stage filter ready. We've got the generator. So everything's disconnected for now so we can see exactly what outputs we're getting. And now we're making wood gas. And that white smoke is mainly moisture. So will it light? Not yet. Let's put it through the first stage filter. I can really hear it bubbling. And look, it's coming out the end there. Right, watch this, it's flammable now. See, it's holding a flame, look at that! Woo! Right, let's put that into the carbon filter. Hear it bubbling away. Just blown the lead off it. What am I going to do there? Well, that's not good. I came with some hose clamps, but that's not good at all. Right, back to the drawing board on that one. Well, all I can say is success is the tip of the iceberg, and what's underneath the surface is normally all the failures. Still, I've had a good week to problem solve this, so I'll show you the developments. And you'll see I've dug this little pit here for the water tank to sit into, the first stage filter. That pipe now directly connects into there. So this failure of the PVC pipe might have been obvious to some, but the main reason why I wanted to use this on everything is for fail-safe. It did exactly what it was meant to do. Meaning if it's in the end of one of these pipes, if the pressure gets too great, it simply blows it off like this. If this was all made of hard pipe like this, and if that pressure then builds up, it's gonna give eventually at much higher pressures. I could introduce a pressure release valve, but if that gets clogged with creosote, it's not gonna work. So for the rest of it, I'm still going to use the PVC pipe. Hopefully now it's gone through the water, it's going to be a lot cooler. So talking of high pressure, you're probably wondering what this T-piece is for. And where this gas is going is back to the fire. So the bypass line is going to connect onto this nozzle here. This is going to shoot gas into our air inlet there for the fire. And I've got a simple valve here to just control the flow. So on this side of the bypass, it's obviously going through our carbon filter. And then back here where it's regulated into the engine. I've also taken that silly nozzle and just had the full width of the 10mm pipe. So attempt number 2, let's get it lit. So as you can see by the colour of the copper, this is getting really hot. Moment of truth. Come on. Ooh. There's just not enough gas coming through. Yeah, it's too many leaks. It's bubbling out there. So I've put on some pipe clamps to seal it all up here. As you can hear, it's still bubbling really well. If I open up the lance here, you can barely see the smoke coming out, but it holds a light. There you go. Barely visible, beautiful blue flame. But that's not enough though. Right, so that's failed attempt number 2 then. So we're definitely getting closer. I have a good feeling about attempt number 3. I'm going to sort out all the gas leaks. I'm going to put more wood in it. And actually, judging by how clean the gas was coming out the lance there, maybe this first stage filter is all we need. Anyway, I'll let it burn down and then we'll carry on tomorrow. Oh. And by the way, I'm definitely thinking of using this to boil water. In our house, we've got a 9 kilowatt electric shower, and it's costing me a fortune at the moment, especially with a house full of girls. Right, so that's a much better sign. I've only just connected this, and already it's producing gas. I would assume that's just steam pressure at the moment. We'll let it get proper hot before we turn it on. So then, we appear to have good clean gas production. That is a beautiful blue flame, if ever I saw one. So let's now test it into the engine. Nothing. Right, so off camera, I managed to get it working. The generator ran for like 30 seconds, and then this blew. That roaring you can hear is all the gas coming out of it, so that says to me that the bottom is blown out. So that is back to the drawing board yet again. It's a new day with new opportunities. Let me show you what's going on. So this is the aftermath of the tin can bucket. You can see it's just got ridiculously hot, and then it's just buckled away at the seam because it's super soft when it's hot. And some of you are probably thinking, well, that was obvious. Well, check this out. I've been using this tin can and this shortbread tin. The tin can is what I used to make my charred cloth. This is just cut with one of those special can openers that leaves a safe edge. Crimp over the edge and it locks it in place. And my shortbread tin has been creating lots of charcoal for me. So this sits at the bottom of the fire. I build the fire on top. There are 3 tiny little holes, as you can see, for the syngases to escape. And I've got consistent, very good quality charcoal from it. And this is like wafer thin. The difference here, though, is we're supercharging the heat using this very efficient rocket stove. All right, so what's that then? So I did a ton of research to try and figure out what would be the best vessel to do this. I did consider getting an old gas bottle or even fabricating something. And thanks to Vevor, I found this. This is a 50-litre stainless steel milk churn. It seems to be much more robust, much more better quality. It's got a nice sealed lid. And the gasket seems to be made of silicone, which should withstand high temperatures. And you can see here I've added a tank connector, which was very simple to do, and I bent up the 15mm copper pipe to match. So these are not that cheap. These are 130 British pounds. But Vevor has agreed to give you guys discounts, so if this works, there'll be a link in the description. And the wood I'm putting in is actually mainly hazel and willow. I think there's a bit of birch and a bit of alder as well. There we go, that should do nicely. So whilst the fire's building, let me explain what's happening here. So then, it appears that our bubbling water tank is able to extract most, if not all, of the impurities. Now, what was noticeable, though, was the amount of water vapour that is still flowing through the system. So then, using a simple pipe bender like this one, I was able to create this coil. That's why it's kind of square-shaped, because the pipe bender only does 90-degree angles. But essentially, because the copper is conductive and lots of surface area, we should be able to condense any last remaining water vapour. And to increase its efficiency, what I've got here is just a simple damp, wet cloth. That goes over like that. And now what happens is as the air rushes over this, because it's a nice breezy day today, the air will start to evaporate the water on this cloth. The evaporation creates a rapid cooling effect, which is ideal. And the reason I've kept the lance side without the condenser is because I want to see the difference. I've also upgraded the tripod, as you can see. This is 12mm thick steel, which is close to ½ an inch. Chain simply passes through here, and I've locked it off with a pin. Something's definitely not right. We're like 50 minutes in. We've got hardly any gas pressure at all. I can hear it bubbling away. I don't think there's a gas leak anywhere. Aha! Do see a little leak. I'm just using a bit of washing up liquid and a bit of solution. That helps me find the bubbles. There's our leak. I've ramped up the fire, and as you can see, I've got gas leaking out the top. So I've got to think of a much better seal there. Whoa! It started raining and I got it going. Let's see if I can turn it off. Right, let's try again. Come on, come on. Are we working? Are we working? Can you see this? Yes! Yes, it works! Come on, baby, keep going. Keep going. Come on. Oh. come on, come on. What's going on there? Whoa, what is that? There's a whole load of gunk coming out. And you can see lots of water. Maybe that means we still do need a filter. Oh my gosh, hope I didn't get any of that in the engine. Right then, to think of the next upgrade. So welcome to Britain. The weather's been lovely, if you're a duck. So you'll be glad to know that the generator is absolutely fine. I cleaned out the carburetor with some carb cleaner and I ran it for about an hour on just regular petrol. And as far as I can tell, it's still working great. What I thought was coming out the line was mud, thinking how did that get in there? But it was actually creosote mixed with water and it made this horrible brown substance. So let me show you how I fixed that. Let me introduce you to the new and improved condenser unit. This coil is now 6 meters of 22mm copper pipe. What I believe was happening with the 15mm is that all that creosote and water was getting caked up on the inside and all the pressure was simply pushing it to the end. So what I'm hoping now is that all that crud will remain on the bottom of the pipe and work its way back into the water bucket. Now if there is anything left and it works its way along this pipe here, it's going to get collected in this old pickle jar. I'm still considering another filtration system after this, but first I want to see the quality of the gas that comes out here first. From the last firing, the milk churn has remained in excellent condition. What I've added to all the tank connectors now is some high temperature silicone, specifically this red high temp silicone from JB Weld, which is made in America, yeah! But let me show you the main issue that was happening on the top gasket here. As you can see, it's actually intact. But if I lay it down on here, you'll notice there's a bit of a rock. What I believe that is warping from where they've welded it. Stainless steel warps so easily when you weld it. Not only that, but these clasps don't put enough pressure on, you can still move it. So the fix I've got for this is one to add some little spacers at the top here. There we go, that's going to add a bit more pressure now. Also I've got these D shackles and an extra bar of stainless steel. These are basically going to act as little G clamps. Put the bar across there and these are a tight fit. And then using these bolts, I'll tighten them up. There we are, this is actually full of wood, ready to go. Let's get it on. So it's probably worth mentioning, yes, this is all very primitive and very kind of bodged. The idea here, of course, is for me to experiment with all the mechanics and figure out what works. Eventually, I want to actually build a proper wood burner system which has all of this integrated into it. Either way, I've shown you all the working development so that you guys can give me feedback on this. I know there are lots of designs out there, very different in the way they operate. This is a very simplistic version. I believe FEMA being one of them, which was meant to help people in a time of crisis. What the FEMA design doesn't do is produce us with charcoal and wood vinegar. So we are at 20 minutes in. Gases are now ignitable. Let's see what's coming through the condenser. So it sounds like it wants to light, but the wind's kind of blowing it out. I've got here a nice clean piece of tissue paper. What I want to see is if there is anything coming out of that nozzle that's still unclean. Yeah, and after about 30 seconds, you can see we're still getting some tar residue there. So we definitely do need a filter of some sort. Right, so then I've added some wet rags to the condenser to help it, and I've re-plugged in the carbon filter. So let's take a clean piece of tissue and see what kind of results we're getting here. So it's been roughly 30 seconds. As you can see, that's quite humbling. We're still getting stuff coming through. So that definitely means that my carbon filter is not as good as I thought it was. Even though they say carbon filters are amazing, I must have made mine wrong somehow. Gas production is excellent now, so let's just give it a quick test. I've got to put it on first. That'll be helpful. This is awesome, but I don't want that creosote getting in the engine. Want to see something cool though? Watch this. So I've let everything cool down and I've started inspecting it. What's really interesting is in our little collection jar is absolutely nothing. There is a very light oily residue, but that's it. So that means that this coil is doing its job. All that crud is definitely working its way out. So I actually realised this as soon as I did it, but I put the lance outlet in completely the wrong place. As all the moisture and tars condense, they're going to sit at the bottom of this pipe and come around this way. And then as it drips down, it completely covers this hole. And what happened is when I did use the lance, all of that crud would come out this way. As you can see there, I got a nice little drip of creosote. I also noticed a new leak on the burn chamber here. You can see the seal started to grade just here and it's all started cracking. So I'm going to see if I can take all this out and replace it with a high temperature silicone. The burn lasted about 2 hours and we did actually make some decent charcoal. If I dig further though, a lot of it isn't charred. So all of this I'll use for the next fire. Right, so it's been a week. The weather's been awful, but let me show you what I've done. I've attempted to put a new seal on the lid. I'm not 100% confident I've done it right. There may be some air bubbles inside it which could pop, but we'll see. I'll clamp it really hard and see if we can get a nice tight seal on there. There you are. So then, let me bring your attention to these. These are 10-inch water filter housings. Let me show you how these work. So these things are incredible, and I managed to get these for just a tenner. I'll put a link to where I got these from in the description. Now with it, I've got these 5-micron filters. These are made from polypropylene, which isn't ideal. I'd rather they were made from paper, or at least something easily compostable. But anyway, I've done something slightly special to this. The filters come in a plastic wrap. What I've done here though, is I've just taken just the end part of the wrap off. And this is then going to go in our filter housing. So as you can see, it's got the plastic wrap all the way until it gets to the bottom. Now we can fill this cavity with something else. And that something else is cat litter. Now this cat litter is a natural desiccant, actually draw water out of the gas. So now the gases will have to pass through the cat litter and then come through this inner filter. Go back onto here. And if there is anything left coming out of this, we should see it deposit on this filter here. And what we can do is try different materials like wood shavings, etc. But we'll see how this works first. You'll also notice that we haven't just got 2 outlets, but we've got a third one here. What I believe happens is within the first half an hour of the burn, all we're doing is drying out the material, so you're just getting moisture coming through. So this nozzle here is to vent out any excess moisture before we end up clogging the filters. And then these 2 outlets are going to go one back to the fire and the other to the generator. And the important thing to bear in mind is that at any one time, one of these needs to be fully open, because if they're all closed, the pressure will build up and something will explode. Right then, let's begin. So then, 22 minutes in, and we're producing gas, which I believe now holds a flame. There we go. Lovely. So if I now open this outlet here, close this one off, should have gas come through. I can see it coming through there. Alright, this is promising. I can see that the gas is filling up this chamber here. Now it looks like nothing is coming out this nozzle, but look at this. Woohoo! So I've got myself a clean piece of tissue again. Let's put that over that outlet there. I can smell the gas. Don't really want to breathe that in, carbon monoxide. Okay, so that's roughly 30 seconds. Would you look at that? That is clean and dry. Perfect. Plug that onto the lance. Kind of a flame comes out the lance. Look at that, beautiful. Well then, moment of truth, let's try the actual generator. We're on. Too soon, not quite enough gas maybe. So despite what I was saying earlier, I'm still getting a lot of smoke coming off the fire, as you can see. But this is because I'm feeding material from the top. Ideally, as I said before, you want to feed the material from underneath. So all of the smoke and gas is actually being fed into the fire rather than being lost like this. So this isn't the best way to set this up. I need to think of a much better kiln idea. Or even if I dug this part out more, I can actually feed material in, but I can't actually reach there. So I'm having to just feed it from the top like this. Right then, so we are 37 minutes in. Let's have another pull. Gosh, she wants to go. She just needs a bit more gas. All right, so it's been over an hour now. I'm beginning to lose hope with this. Come on, come on, come on. It's not at full speed yet. Try and put some fuel under here. Come on! Right, so if you see here, it's got the overload light on. That's because it's not revving enough. So I've restricted it a little bit. Now if I go on full whack, and then it'll peter out again. Need to get more gas production. Come on, get there, get there. Lights gone off. Righty there. Oh, 91 minutes, 22%. Well, as you can see, we've got a gas leak. Oh, that is absolutely gutting. I'm going to adopt a British attitude, and that is to never give up and never surrender. Anyway, let me show you what I'm doing now. First of all, let's inspect the lid. Yeah, now the silicone is completely disintegrated. But weirdly, it's like it's gone back to being soft again. I'm wondering if that's all the methanol and stuff in the creosote that's caused that. But anyway, that's no longer setting now. This has been out for a few days. The gasket itself I left for a week to cure, so it should have been fine. Inside here, though, we've got really good quality charcoal. And I said before that this stuff will come in handy in ways you don't realise. And I haven't actually spoken about that yet. That's to come. So the next thing I want to do is check these filters. Wow, look at that. Well, on the outside, that's absolutely disgusting. Interestingly, though, it looks quite clean on the inside, so it's definitely done its job as far as filtering goes. The cheapest I could get these, though, was like £1.50. So a running cost of £3 a go is no good to me. It needs to be cheaper. And also, disposing these, I don't like the fact that they're plastic. Well, that'll need a good wash out. Half of the cat litter is dry. You think about that. Yeah, so I guess it has worked. I am, however, extremely impressed how well the water filter is doing its job. I thought to show you what's inside here last, but before we move on to the next stage, I thought you'd be curious to see what's in here. Here we go. So first of all, you can see our stainless steel mesh is completely covered in thick black creosote. We can actually get all of this off really easily using a heat gun or a blowtorch. On top, you can see we've got an oily residue. I believe that could be methanol. And the rest of this is known as wood vinegar. And apparently we can use this as a fertilizer. However, the recent testing that I've done has actually killed my plants, so I need to do some more research on that. I think it's mainly because this is so acidic. It's got a pH of 3. You want roughly a pH of 7 for your plants. But in the meantime, I've been storing this in another barrel. And what I need to figure out is the correct use of this or a safe way of disposing it. But what we're left at the bottom of the barrel is the more valuable creosote. Look at that. And so all I've been doing is collecting it in jars. Now traditionally this stuff's been used as a wood preserver. So these byproducts could be a massive positive or a negative depending on how you look at it. It certainly takes away convenience from the process, that's for sure. Here we are, good as new. Well then, moving forward, I need to sort this out. So for my next sealing solution, I'm going to use glass fibre rope. So this stuff is used for sealing doors on wood burners. But the question lingering in my mind is, can this be airtight? First to add the adhesive. There we go, leave that for 5 minutes. Right, so after 5 minutes, I've cut the rope to size. Using the special tape they gave me, I'll tape the end together. Now it should be a case of just laying it in there. And then simply wipe away any excess. Right, so then, apparently it needs 24 hours, so we'll check in tomorrow. So this is now several days later, and I've set up this pressure testing rig, and the new seal works apart from one tiny hole, which as you can imagine, was on the seam. So I've gone over it again with the high temp silicone, just a very thin layer. What this actually needs is a custom single piece gasket. So I haven't tested this again since, let's do a new test. What I also bought are these adorable G-clamps. These work really well. So I'm going to slowly raise up the pressure to just a few psi, and then we'll check to see if there's any leaks. I can hear a leak somewhere. I actually think it's my pipe fitting. Yeah. Yep, didn't like being on an angle like that. Right, so that is just on half a bar. So it's about 7 psi that. Yeah, I think I found the slow leak. And as I suspected, exactly where that seam is. Now hopefully that's enough pressure retained for what I'm about to do. So then, let me just show you my adult bathtub. There you go, adult bathtub. I think what they mean by adult is single and broke. Because let's face it, me and my wife can't do anything adult in this. However, it did only cost me 27 British pounds. So you may be thinking, hot tub. Well, that's a great idea, but it's not quite what we're doing here. No, to go with it, I also have this end of a barrel. You can see we've got an in and outlet here, and underneath it, I've put a counterweight in the form of a fork truck tine. But basically, that's acting as ballast to keep this upright. And basically, this should fit in here nicely. Bit more ballast maybe. Surprising, I thought that'd be enough. I don't know if you can hear that. This is basically acting like a gas storage tank. Officially, these are called gasometers. Now you may have seen one of these on your travels. These are still used today for modern gas production and have been used for hundreds of years for coal gasification, making town gas to supply light to local villages. So I'm going to link the outlet of this all the way to our bypass here. And I've also put in an isolation valve here. What that really should be is a check valve. A check valve essentially is a one-way valve. So if we've got any gas leaks this way, once we've fully filled up that tank, it's not going to leak back through the system. So now let me show you the filter situation. So I wondered for a moment if that little bit of wood tar was actually beneficial, that the engine was kind of running on it. However, after trying to clean out these housings, and I used white vinegar, methylated spirit, isopropyl alcohol, and carb cleaner, and nothing takes that off. So I really don't want that getting in the engine if possible. It might actually be that it's corroded into the plastic, so maybe on metal surfaces it's fine, but I don't really want to risk it. So what I'm going to do is wad out the bottom just using some regular tissue paper, and that should help with cleaning it later. I'm going to fill one of them with just regular cat litter, and the other one I'm going to fill with proper activated carbon. I bought it from this company, which is very reputable, to test against my own batches. However, it is quite expensive, which is why I haven't bought that much. Well, that was a 600 gram package, and I've used about 3/4. Alright, let me show you the filter modification. So on the rest of the housings, I've fitted these pipes here. Inside there's a 25mm fitting to 10mm. I've then got a simple PVC sleeve down to a copper pipe. In the end I've drilled a few holes and I've plugged it with a bit of steel wire, just to stop debris getting up inside there. So I'm going to put the cat litter in first, and then the activated carbon. So then, let's get it lit, see if they work. So we've got clean water in here, and the wood that we've got is 75% hazel and 25% ash. And I'll doubly make sure that the isolation valve is on and the bypass valve is on, but those other two valves are turned off. So already, just 13 minutes in, don't know if you can see that. But the gasometer is starting to fill up and rise out of the water. We're now guaranteed pure fuel gas and no oxygen. If there's an oxygen mix inside this, then it could explode. So on the generator, you can see I've got the gas line going straight into the carburetor, and there's enough gap around that pipe to draw in oxygen. So we're now 24 minutes in. Look how much gas we've got. Because we're not wasting any gas trying to get up to that flow rate, this should be a much more efficient system. Before we start the generator, let's check the quality of the gas. I feel like there's not much coming out really. Well, there's definitely something coming out. Yeah, clean-ish. There's a bit of dust though. Let's see what it's like. What's going on? Ooh. I'm going to empty this filter. I need to somehow put weight on that. Come on! I never thought I'd want some bungee cords. Well, that's not good. I need to do something about that. It's got more of a flame. Come on! I want to see the quality of gas coming out of this. Whoa! Okay, well that's got gas. Come on! What is happening? So then, I'll spare you of any more of my pain and anguish. Turns out it was a problem with the generator. Can you guess what it was? That's right, it was clogged with creosote. I must say a massive thank you to this gentleman's channel, and specifically this video here. It helped me diagnose and fix the problem, so thank you. But all it was is the valve was stuck, so just to take the rocker cover off, give it a tap, it was fine. Just a note to self to test it before I do all that work. Now, do you remember I said we needed a one-way valve? Turns out I was correct. So I did, I put one in just there. This one's designed for water, but it will still work. But this will stop the pressure of the gasometer from pushing back, which would otherwise be pushing the first stage water into the burn chamber. We'll see if this gets clogged though. And we now have bungees. This will add a nice bit of pressure as this builds up, and hopefully stabilise it, stop it falling over. I say should. Lastly, this lid has become the bane of my life. But a massive thank you to INS Stoves, a very small business with an excellent support team. We have the proper silicone fireproof sealant, rated all the way to 1200 degrees Celsius. And some flat stove rope. I think this could be the solution. Fortunately for me, I've got a spare to work on. Basically, we're going to keep layering it up. So I think 4 layers should do that. It's actually heat activated, so I'm going to try it on, let it squish in a bit, and then I might throw it in the oven for a little bit. So the new seal's been in the oven for a little bit. Let's just give it a quick pressure test. Ooh. What was that? I don't know. Let's keep going. Well, that seems to be holding at half a bar. I think we have success. But we all know that that can change in an instant. So regarding the filters, I worry myself sometimes how stupid I am. But essentially the 10mm copper pipe that I used previously is no good because you can't get enough airflow through it and it keeps getting blocked. So this blue water pipe has an internal measurement of 25mm or 1 inch. And by having a larger pipe like this, filtration medium will be both on the outside and on the inside of the pipe. So the gases will flow down and then up through. So after conducting a flow test using compressed air, I've decided to go 50-50 with charcoal and the cat litter on this one, and to use the regular 5 micron filter, but surrounded it with sawdust. It's a bit unscientific, but we'll see how it works. So then, with nothing else attached, we should be able to run the generator straight off the gas that we've already collected. Just to make sure nothing's stuck again. Well, at least it runs. Let's get more gas production going then. think I need to make some more char cloth. So then it begins. So we're 53 minutes in, and she's taken a while to get hot. So let's check upon gas production. Doesn't want to stay lit for some reason. So straight from the burn chamber, we've managed to get a lit flame. I don't know if you can see that. If I add gas straight from the gasometer, it goes out for some reason. Right, so I have a strong feeling that I've collected the wrong gas. I think as pyrolysis happens, different gases are getting released at different temperatures. So whatever's in here, probably carbon dioxide, isn't helpful. So I'm going to get rid of all this gas. Is it ignitable? There we go, back to how we were. And now we wait for it to fill up again. We are 84 minutes in and we are at full production. Might not be able to see that, but that's a flame right there. Let's just put that into here then. I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. For whatever reason, it doesn't want me to use the gas that's in there. The moment I turn that on, I don't understand. That's the flame we're getting, and it's perfect. Now, interestingly, it does die down when I add the gasometer. Too much resistance in the filters, maybe. I'm going to try one last thing. Remove this filter. So looking at the flame here, it appears to have done absolutely nothing. So I'm going to quickly take this one off, see what that's like. Well, we've got that yellowness in there now, which isn't any good for us. Well, that's better. It works, it doesn't work. So what's going on? The number one variable in this case is I used 100% hazel this time. This hazel's been sitting out for about a year. It might not be the driest, but it is fully seasoned. But even the way the gas was lighting, it's like it's a different chemical composition. Now the filters were kind of working, but they were kind of hindering the gas flow. I think I've got one last idea I want to try. Been ticking along like this for 20 minutes now. What do you guys make of this? So the gas is open coming along here. If I open this, it revs. There's no gas coming out here. Turn this one off. If I turn this one down a little bit, maybe I've got the air fuel mix wrong. Hang on. That light's come off. Today is the day. I've been obsessively working on this for at least 2 months. When I've not been tinkering, I've been doing tons and tons of research and reading and everything. And mainly looking at other people's devices and thinking to myself, why and how does theirs work? But firstly, we've left the gas overnight. Does it still work? So just like before, we've got isolation from the gasometer. Let's turn it on and pull the cord. Put a bit of pressure on this. Yep, reached the bottom. I ran the system for a long time yesterday. Let me show you the state of the filter housings. So this one has the 5 micron filter inside. So that's obviously acted like a condensate trap. But on the inside, as you can see, these filters definitely do work. But this requires a huge amount of experimentation to get the correct gas flow, correct filtration, and to be able to burn it afterwards or compost it. And now the first stage didn't have anything at all, so that's just collected all the gunk. Ugh. Wow, that was hard to undo. So looking at that now, I should have took that blue pipe off, because once it's got filled, it's just going to push it back up there, isn't it? But it's mainly your water again in here. A little bit of tar, but mainly water, that is. So just looking at that, I think a shmoo trap and then a first and second stage filter is probably a good idea. However, I don't believe these are good enough. I think they're too restrictive. They need to be even bigger. What I also underestimated is how much the engine is sucking in gas. So looking at other people's T-pieces and the valves where they control the in and the out, I understand why that works so well now. Also, I've concluded that all pipes should be big. Just go big or go home. So to have a working gasometer, we need it to be really big. And there's probably a mathematical formula of how big to make the gasometer, but I've basically built the biggest that I was prepared to spend money on. So we also need to consider the type of wood. Every species has a different chemical composition, and so the ratio of hydrogen and methane is going to be completely different. But also a significant flaw in my design is that I really wanted to use charcoal as a byproduct. And believe it or not, most of the carbon monoxide gases are contained within the charcoal. You can actually get gasifiers that work on just pure charcoal. So I don't actually believe I'm getting enough calorific content in the gases we're producing. At least not enough to run the generator at full pelt. So my main objective was to fully charge the Ecoflow. And despite trying to make this work over a 2-month period, and the money and the mess that I've created, I'm now pretty convinced that this system just doesn't work. But for the sakes of closure, I've got one little bit of charred cloth left. I need to make some more, so let's give it one last go. So quickly regarding the filters, there's nothing in this one, that's just a shmoo trap. And in this one, there is a blue pipe and it's surrounded with sawdust. That's it. So everything's been pressure tested, there's good flow rate for all the pipes, we've got clean water, and the generator still works. Let's do this. A small detail I decided to do differently this time. You see how muddy and wet it is here? It's like the Battle of the Somme. So I've added a lot more fuel to the fire in the hopes to get it super hot and raging before I add the burn chamber. I'm using a little bit extra fuel, but that doesn't really matter, does it? So then we're bubbling straight away. That's a really good sign. So we are exactly 20 minutes in. This valve is prior to the filters, and we have a lit flame that is nearly completely invisible. You can hear it and you can kind of see the waviness of it. That's an indicator that we're burning pure hydrogen. As the methane, tars and other gases start to come through, this should start to change to a yellow colour. So 20 minutes later, just over 40 minutes in, we're getting some yellow and purple flame coming. Let's now try it through the filters, see what that's like. So this is gas after filter. It's gone a lot more yellower at the top. This, by the way, is cold to touch, as in really cold. This is doing an excellent job. So then, moment of truth. Let's do this. So far, so good, but we still need that red light to come off. We're 1 hour in and the indicator light has gone off. That means she's making power. Let's have a go. Well, that sounds healthier. Okay, so again, starting at 22%. She's struggling. She's doing it, 580 watts. We're not at full charging capacity. Can actually do over 2,000 watts. This is the trickle charge. It's still charged in 3 hours, that's not bad. Hang on a minute. I don't understand this, I've just opened up the valve, so we've got excess gas coming off there. This is running even better. It's actually burning rich. I don't believe it! It's actually working! That's amazing! Do you know what this means? 26%, 3 hours till it's fully charged. Have we got 3 hours of gas though? I have no idea how or why this works. I'm completely stumped again. But it's working! Technically I could plumb this flame back to the fire. Make that more efficient. It's sustaining! That's amazing! Can't believe it, I've just realised something. I've got it in economy mode. Let's turn that off. Now what are we drawing? It's in fast charging mode. Still not going above 600 watts though. Corrupted video file. But anyway, key details. How long did it last for and how much energy did we make? Well, we started at 22%, now we're at 28%. So basically the charging only lasted about 20 minutes or so, and then the gas production started to die down before it couldn't charge anymore. But if we calculate the 3.2 kilowatt capacity that I think this has, divide that by 100% and times that by the 6% increase that we got, then I think that works to like 192 watts that we captured. That doesn't sound like a lot, but there was some potential that we missed here. Not realizing that I had it in economy mode, when I switched it, it appeared not to make any difference. But as you saw in earlier footage, we were actually drawing over 900 watts at one point. And before that, while I had it connected to the generator whilst it was on petrol, it was drawing over 2,000 watts. So the generator was going at full capacity, but I think the charge controller in the Ecoflow, I think somehow got a bit confused. It needed restarting, which it didn't do. So it stayed at the 600 watt production, which is still pretty good in my opinion. So what will it take to actually charge this thing fully? Or to have a sustained run time of the generator that we can actually use? So technically all that is more wood in a burn chamber. But it doesn't need to be wood. It can be anything that burns. That could be hedge cuttings or cardboard packages or even plastic. And at the end, you're left with charcoal, which is only a good thing. Turning that into biochar, inoculating it with lots of fertility, and then putting it in the ground for the farmers, that is all a win-win. Let's just quickly look at the key components. That new gasket works absolutely perfectly. When I come to build my much more bigger device, I'll definitely be using that method again. Let's check out these filters. Oh, the creosote really makes that hard to open. It's not creosote, it's wood tar. I need to stop saying creosote. Not to be confused with coal creosote, which is actually cancerous. Wood tar actually isn't, apparently. So again, this is filled with water. Put that on my compost pile. At the very bottom, there is a bit of wood tar though. But how well did just a bit of wood shavings do? So I did actually put some steel wire just inside here, just to stop any debris going up. That worked. So the wood shavings on the surface looked like they didn't really do much. It must have done something. Let me empty this into a bucket, see what it's like all the way through. So interestingly, the further down we go, it seems to have deposited more of the wood tar. And then you can see I've got a lot on the steel wire that was just inside that pipe. So I'm going to have a think about that. So being left overnight, did any of the wood tar clog the engine again? Let's see. This is just a bit of carb cleaner. It's good. I will need to have a proper inspection inside this engine and see what's really going on. But there may be a manageable amount that is allowed in, which also acts like a fuel. What do you think? So was this a success? We're helping the forest and the biodiversity. Tick. Extracting carbon dioxide, because apparently that's important. Tick. Generating electricity. Tick. Question is, how do we scale this up? I'm going to read every single comment and I'm going to lap up whatever feedback you're going to give me. If you're rude, you'll get ignored, so just be polite. Now, who would have thought ancient technology would be the answer to the future? Let's not be complainers that sit back and do nothing. Let's all be doers and do something about it. So then, can I encourage you guys also to get out there in the real world and to forge for yourself a life worth living? And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.